Hey, we're talking with Army veteran Brett Currier, founder and CEO of VetGigs. Brett, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here today. Before we get to talking about business and entrepreneurship, I'd like to hear what you did in the Army.
Hey, Joe, thanks for having me on. So I spent 12 years in the Army and Army National Guard as both a military policeman and a religious affairs NCO. During that time, I served a tour in Iraq, Operation Iraqi Freedom. And over about the last 6 years, I got out about April last year. I was heavily involved in the California wildfire missions with my Line MP unit. So all those raging wildfires you saw in the news, those were me and my guys out there doing any looting operations and helping folks return to the areas after the fires had hit, and seeing what was left of their homes and property. So that was a real honor to help out there as well.
Yeah, I can only imagine. We stationed in Southern California. We had some fires come near the horizon a couple of times, but never had to evacuate. But and then at the same time, there was Colorado was having massive wildfires, and we actually got kind of caught on the wrong side of the highway with one that had popped up, and it was a crazy summer. So I'm sure you're glad that's over with. Probably phenomenal experience.
It was, yeah, certainly a very rewarding experience, but definitely now happy to be in the position, Matt, helping out veterans and in a new stage of my career.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about your transition away from the Army.
Yeah, it was kind of interesting because it really came in two stages. My return from Iraq, Operation Iraqi Freedom, and then my transition out of the National Guard. And I think the first was definitely more of a struggle, especially because within the first couple months of being back, I lost my first battle buddy due to suicide. A guy who really looked out for me over there, was really close with, and that was a really difficult piece. And unfortunately, since then, I've actually lost two more battle buddies due to suicide as well. And it's something I've struggled with, and I've really felt that loss get compounded each time. And it's really driven me to do what I'm doing now with VetGigs, because while we've all dealt with our own battles since coming home, one underlying thread I could put together with those losses was they lost their sense of professional purpose. You have such a single-minded focus in the military. You've got this support system all around you, and then you get out of the military and you don't have that anymore. And so it's tough figuring out what's next, especially when most of the jobs that are marketed towards you are things like security guard jobs, police jobs, and not everyone wants to be in law enforcement. And there's nothing necessarily wrong with security work, but you don't get to take all of the tremendous hard and soft skills you built in the military and put those to work in that. So it's really demoralizing when someone hands you a flashlight and whistle and says, "Hey, guard this empty building." So
there's a lot of that out there. Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned soft skills, because a lot of times veterans don't realize how valuable their soft skills are. A lot of times employers don't realize how valuable the soft skills that veterans possess. So, soft skills are things like leadership, discipline, experience, tactfulness, all those great things that all of us experience in such a short amount of time in the military. And we may not have that CPA or MBA or the Six Sigma qualification, whatever it may be. It looks great on a resume, but what we don't have in certain kinds of certifications or professional ratings, we make up for in spades with those soft skills. So glad you brought that up.
Absolutely.
So you actually got into you've been involved in a couple of different consulting businesses since you've been out, and consulting's come up a few times recently here on the show. Actually, consulting's a great gig for a lot of veterans, because you don't necessarily have to be an expert in that particular type of business. You just, a lot of consulting companies, you're an outsider looking in on a business. And sometimes with, the military experience you have, you can provide a lot of good guidance and consulting services to a lot of businesses out there.
Oh, absolutely. I tell veterans all the time who kind of have that imposter syndrome getting into it, just like in the military, you're not expected to have all of the answers. You're just expected to know, the resources available to you and know where to go to find the answers. Because I don't know how many times a day we say in meetings, it's a really great question, really, really great point. I'll take that as an action item and follow up with you. And
Mhm.
that's perfectly acceptable, and really just part of the business. So we are to some extent professional Googlers and professional, resource finders.
Hmm. And how long have you been doing your various consulting businesses or consulting jobs?
Yeah, so I've been in management consulting at big firms for 5 years. I spent most of that time at Deloitte Consulting, and I left back in just this past June to start VetGigs. And I moved over to a more specialized firm, Huron Consulting Group, who's thankfully really supportive of everything I'm doing with VetGigs.
Mhm.
And it's been a really great opportunity, and I've been able to take so much I've learned in consulting and bring that into the veteran community.
Yeah.
And
So, touch. I'm curious about the consulting thing before we get to talking about vet gigs. Um, what's been your personal experience with being a consultant involved with a consulting company, especially a larger one or a smaller one? And why do you think your military experience works well with consulting?
oh yeah, I've definitely been able to bring so much from my experience in the military and bring it in. Even before I was an operations NCO and really working on, multi-thousand person operations, even just as a line MP, I had significant management experience. I had training and facilitation experience. I had experience working with, hundreds of thousands of dollars of equipment that I really had to manage and oversee. And I was working really closely with senior leadership. All of those things are very comparable in the consulting world. You're working on high value dollar projects. Your direct counterpart on the client side is likely going to be a director. And it's actually interesting because I think people are so shocked with the amount of direct reports we have in the military. So when we go into the private sector and we're working on projects and consulting, they're just amazed at how successful veterans are with managing people. We are used to, people always kind of joke about how rough around the edges we can be in the military. But I think what they fail to realize too is we know how to operate in a professional environment. We
Mhm.
can have tact when we need to,
Yeah.
and so we bring all of that in. Whereas folks who are being hired out of college, it's all new for them. So not only are they learning how to work in a professional environment, but they're learning how to, they've never managed or had anybody report to them, and never had to deal with any of the things we've been doing for years in the military.
Absolutely. So, where did the entrepreneurial bug come from? Were you always interested in entrepreneurship, even when you're in the army?
Oh, certainly. I actually had my first business when I was 11 years old at the U.S. Army War College. Being an Army brat,
Really?
yeah, my dad made me shine his shoes, several times a week, anyways. And so I figured, hey, if I have to do this anyways, why don't I do it for the other, hundreds of officers on post and make some money doing it. And I wanted to do it under the table, but much to my parents' credit, they made me go into the provost marshal office, get a business license, and which they MPs actually laughed me out the first time to get out of here, kid. Is
Really?
a joke. And I went back to my dad. He's like, no, he does want to get a business license. And yeah, so I made a few $1,000s that year I was there at the Army War College, and it really taught me that I could, build and grow something on my own and create value in the community around me. And I've had a number of businesses since, including one in 2014 with a few other veterans, which was a low perishability protein company for military and first responders,
Mhm.
which unfortunately I had to divest from in 2016 when I joined Deloitte. But
Yeah.
wonderful experience.
Awesome.
Uh,
Well, we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to be right back, and then we're going to start talking about vet gigs.
Sounds good.
Okay, back talking with Army veteran Brett Curry, founder of VetGigs. So where did the idea for VetGigs come from?
Yeah, so it's something that's been brewing for a few years. I originally kind of envisioned it as a veteran staffing firm, but I saw that wasn't quite scalable. But really, during my years in consulting, I started seeing that the big players were leaving millions of dollars on the table by not incorporating service disabled, veteran owned small businesses as subcontractors, because for whether it be local, state, or federal contracts, they almost all have riders saying if you give X percentage to a subcontractor that's a disabled veteran business, you can make more money on the contract. And over again, I saw these big consulting firms say, you know what, it's just too hard to find them. There's just not enough out there. We can't really connect with them. There's this disconnect in the market.
Yeah.
And I thought, sought out a way to provide these opportunities to veterans and connect to them easily with employers at scale. And I saw the online freelancer marketplace model really flourish over the past few years, to the benefit of both, freelancers and employers. So I thought, why don't we make something like this for military that really focuses on consulting and other professional services? So I created VetGigs. It took some time to put things together, but we launched our platform in October. And, via the platform, we give veterans an opportunity to learn about all of these opportunities out there to them, these free certifications they can pursue that make them eligible for these roles that really start around $40, $50 an hour, but range well over $100 an hour, and give them an opportunity to be entrepreneurs themselves and work for themselves in professional services with the clients they want, on the work they want, and just really make a great living doing it. And the big employers out there don't really have the same excuse of, it's just too hard to connect with veteran freelancers out there, because they can do so right on the platform. And we've been really happy to see tremendous interest from big consulting and big tech companies out there about this new diversity, equity, and inclusion pipeline form.
So the service disabled veteran owned business certification is great to have as a veteran owned business. A lot of veteran business owners don't really think much about that. Like if they're not they think I don't really need that, or it's not going to do me any good because I'm not applying for government contracts. I'm not that big. Mm-hmm. But it comes into play where you not only have the federal, but the state and several other classifications of contracts that require set-asides and all those things. And oftentimes the big company that gets the contract or is applying to get the contract, they're looking for the smaller companies to subcontract it out to. And that's where it comes into play. As a small guy, you can get a subcontract through the bigger company that got the main contract, and they are looking for you because you're service disabled veteran owned business. So I myself kind of had disregarded that early on several years ago, that I'm not applying for the government contract thing, until I realized like, oh, one of those that comes out of nowhere that says we need you and you're going to provide these services for us. If you've already got that certification, it definitely comes in handy sometimes, can make a big difference. So
absolutely.
Yeah. So the other thing that's interesting that you talked about is, and this is still going on, as many people that we have out there that are trying to fix this problem, you got all these companies that want to hire veterans. You got all these veterans that want good jobs, want to do business with them, but there's this great divide and they can't seem to connect with each other for some reason. It's this great mystery that is still going on with it, and as much effort and as much nonprofits, as many nonprofits, companies, everything out there that's trying to fix this issue, it's still there. It's still going on. So talk about how you initially got VetGigs going. What your initial idea and vision for the company was.
Yeah, absolutely. So the idea has definitely changed over time. Like I said, I kind of envisioned it originally as a staffing firm, but saw that's not really scalable because it still puts the emphasis on having an in-between. But really with the freelancer model or freelancer marketplace model, it not only creates more value for the veteran or military spouse entrepreneur because there's not an in between, but it allows them to more efficiently connect directly with the employers. So they essentially just have to jump on our platform, create a free profile, and they can send in free proposals to employers out there looking to hire them. And I think there's a misconception that it would take a significant lead time for them to become a professional services contractor. And maybe it might if they want to be a CPA or a lawyer. There's, some quite a bit of training there that needs to go involved. But
Mm-hmm.
we talked a bit about all of the soft skills we bring to the table and even some of the hard skills too. So with, some really simple research on things like the systems development lifecycle to understand technology projects, experience knowing things like change management methodology and whatnot, all of which can be learned through free sources online. And we can help you direct you to some of those sources to learn in addition to the free certifications out there. If you want to get into things like tech consulting, you can really get up to speed pretty fast. And so I always encourage people, jump on VetGigs, make a free profile, and then we'll help you with any kind of skill gap you feel is there to really prepare you for those projects. And if you do have an interest in working as a full-time employee consultant instead of as a freelancer, we can help with you with that as well, because I have a pretty extensive network at a number of different firms. So we can help you with things like employee referrals and stuff as well.
So what type of jobs are out there? Like maybe some of the things that people might be surprised about, like you kind of touched on a couple of them. What kind of things are companies looking for today that they're having a hard time finding?
Oh yeah, great question. So on big technology projects, there are so many different roles. Things like communication leads and change management leads, where your role is to really help be at the core center of a project, joining a bunch of meetings, understanding everything that's going on, sending out communications about what's changing, and helping the organization adapt with that big technology or other implementation that's going on. There are things like functional consultants, where you simply get to know a certain type of technology. Maybe it's a big ERP system or CRM. And then you go and talk with clients, understanding what they need out of the system and helping them build it out. And then there are a lot of really technical roles too, which you can learn as well through free certification programs out there for you. Things like data engineers or different technical roles for cloud software. There's just so many opportunities out there. And just because you don't have that background now, or don't even have a background in technology, is not a blocker that is insurmountable, because there are opportunities out there. You just have to know about the resources and put in a little time. But we're here to help you with that.
Yeah, because a lot of those jobs you're talking about they're kind of newer. They're haven't those kinds of requirements haven't been around for a long time, so they typically aren't going to find somebody with a lot of experience in that specific role, but you might be able to find somebody with the right background that can adapt to the role.
Exactly. And that's really common in technology. We see all the time that, these technology changes so fast that even experienced tech consultants are constantly having to reskill and don't have the background in that area. So, the fact that you're coming in without a background in that technology or that area is not a prohibiting factor at all. You just got to be willing to grab the free resources out there to help you, and go out there and seek out mentorship and whatnot, which we help out with plenty as well. I spend a good amount of my week talking with veterans, mentoring them, helping connect them to free resources out there. And I learn about new resources all the time myself as well. I kind of put it like this, the resources out there for veterans in the community, kind of like a bunch of individual strands of rope. And as we meet with each other, we inform each other about the resources. We start tying knots between it. And, pretty soon you've got a pretty sturdy net that really is supportive of the veteran community.
Yeah, absolutely. So There's a number of companies and websites out there, even veteran and military spouse specific, that are trying to connect these companies with quality job candidates. But, and I'm familiar with many of them. I've had several of them on the show, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure if any of them have quite gotten it right yet. I mean, so what? It's interesting. I mean, I can't put my finger on why it seems to be such a difficult problem to solve.
Well, it is difficult, but the way I see it is they each have their own narrow focus. You
Mhm.
know, I give the cooperation between myself, Work for Warriors, the civilian employment branch of the National Guard, and groups like Maribus and Salesforce as a perfect example. We each have our own piece of the mission. So Salesforce offers the free certification for military veterans and military spouses, but they don't provide really the training. It's all self-guided. Maribus, a veteran service organization, provides free training and mentorship to help prepare the freelancers for those, or prepare the veterans or military spouses for that certification. But they don't really help them get a job after they do. They go and look to VetGigs for that or other groups. So once they get their certification, we help them find the freelancing gig of their dreams, and help them iron out all the pain points that come with freelancing, such as, finding gigs, the difficulty of coming to an agreement with the employer, and actually getting paid. So we try and iron out all of those pain points for them. And then Work for Warriors helps us get those opportunities out there in front of veterans as well. So we work really closely with them and let them know when we have opportunities up so they can get the word out to current and past service members.
That's great. How do you vet the veteran and how do you vet the companies?
A really great question. So with the veterans, the main thing we're looking for is making sure they have an honorable discharge. So we ask for a redacted DD 214 with all the PII stripped out because we don't need that. Or we ask for something like a VFW ID card or a VA ID card,
Mhm.
all of which will prove they're a veteran with an honorable discharge, which is most important to employers. The second thing is, we have a lot of direct contact with freelancers on the platform. So if they're not quite ready to work in professional services yet, because they are maybe missing some hard skills to accompany the soft skills they built, we work with them and help them get there. As far as vetting the companies, we also have a very, very close relationship with the companies on our platform. I generally talk directly with the CHROs, the CIOs, and they're all pretty large, sizable companies. Our kind of premier of which right now is AppDirect, the really large cloud e-commerce company. So if you're a big tech giant out there and you're building a cloud solution, you go to them and say, I want this, and this in my system architecture, and kind of put it together for you. But we also work with a higher ed strategy company, Beyond Academics, and a few other consulting companies as well, all of which present really exciting opportunities for the veteran community.
Wow, that's awesome. So, like, what's the difference between going to VetGigs and looking for opportunities there versus going through the traditional job market?
Yeah, so with traditional, there's really kind of two distinguishing factors. First off, if you're going and looking for a traditional job market, you're generally looking for work as an employee, where you're working for someone else. You'll get, full-time salary or hourly work, depending. And there's kind of limited growth there, and you're always dependent on them when you are wanting a raise. You can raise your market value all you want by getting new certifications and getting new experience, but you're still going to them at the end of the year and saying, look, I did all these things, please, give me more money to compensate me for that. And it's generally not going to increase your income by your market worth. When you're a freelancer, that's a little bit different, because as you get a new certification, say you go from being a Salesforce administrator where you could bill about $50 an hour to being a Salesforce app builder where you could I'll just throw out a random number, say $85, $90 an hour, you've almost doubled your worth there, or close to it. And when you get a new client, you can bill them at that new rate because that's your market rate. As soon as your experience and market value goes up, you're billing that and making more money.
Mm-hmm.
And the main difference between VetGigs and other freelancing marketplaces out there is we're only for military veterans and military spouses at the moment. And the other distinguishing factor is we focus on professional services. So those are gigs with that higher bill rate level, even starting off in the industry. So the income you can expect with jobs on VetGigs are pretty life-changing for a lot of military families coming out of the military. And that's why we tend to focus in that professional services area.
Yeah. Okay. So as far as the entrepreneurial aspects are concerned, starting a business like VetGigs, what are some of the things you experienced in the beginning when you came up with your initial idea, and when you tried to execute on it, some of the roadblocks and stumbling blocks that you experienced along the way?
Oh, there have certainly been many, Joe. But, I think that's one of the great things about being a veteran entrepreneur is we know how to adapt and overcome with what's being thrown at us. The first thing for me was, I think, the technical aspects, which I expected to be the hardest. Things like building the front end of the website. I hadn't done that before, and it was something that was a brand new task. And then all the configuration on the back end of my platform as well. It all took me quite a bit of time. And things like doing the search engine optimization for our platform as well. All of that I pretty much did myself. But I was able to seek out mentors who were able to give me guidance in that area and really help me along. And those tended to actually be some of the lower stumbling blocks, whereas what's been some of the more time consuming or difficult parts of the business was the PR and marketing pieces, because it wasn't just everything that was right at my fingertips and I could go and just pick something up and run with it like that. So opportunities like this to share about all the opportunities VetGigs presents on the podcast have been wonderful. And then just working with others in the veteran community who have been able to help spread the word, because we're able to do that so much more efficiently than just merely on social media, where we're going after a huge crowd that way. So,
wow, that's awesome. Well, so Brett, how do we find VetGigs?
Yeah, so you can find VetGigs through our website, www.vetgigs.com, or on social media at VetGigs on Instagram, LinkedIn, or Facebook.
Awesome. And if you had any final advice for anybody that's in the military looking to get out, or in the middle of their transition on the way out, what kind of advice would you have for them? Whether it's advice on starting your own business or advice on looking to do some freelancing.
Yeah, I would say those two really go hand in hand, but I would say, definitely seek out mentorship. And that's even once you've really grown in your industry and people are going and looking to you for mentorship. I spend a large portion of my week mentoring veterans, but I still have to seek out mentors of my own when I'm, struggling or looking to grow in different areas that I haven't before. And also, continue to research the resources available to you. Organizations like SCORE that can help you with your business planning or different aspects in your business, or your state veterans department, like in Texas, the Texas Veterans Commission, who will help you even if you're not a Texas veteran. They provide free management consulting to help you out. They're a huge, huge resource. And in California, you've got CalVet as well, who will really help you with primarily government contracting as well. But, the opportunities out there are quite limitless. Whether you're looking for certifications or experience upping your hard skills or working on your business. So, do your research. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us at info@vetgigs.com.
Awesome. All right, Brett. Well, thanks for sharing your veteran success entrepreneur story. And we look forward to seeing your future success.
Thanks so much, Joe. Take care.
All right. these two veterans are asking my